everybody, and welcome to the western fringes of the Great Kruger National Park here in South Africa. My name's Henry, that is the Nkuhuma Pride. Craig is on camera, and it's lovely to have you here with us. Please ask your parents to ask us any questions that you would like to on Nat Geo Kids at wildearth.tv. That's Nat Geo Kids at wildearth.tv. For the next hour, we're going to be exploring this wilderness. We're going to spend an hour with these magnificent big cats. We'll go down to a waterhole where there are some crocodiles and hippopotami, and we'll probably, or if we're very lucky, possibly see a leopard. Africa's most elusive spotted cat. Isn't that wonderful? Now, please ask as many questions as you can. As I said, this is the Nkuhuma Pride. It's a pride of lions consisting of 11 lions. There are 11 lions in this group. 6 of them are youngsters and 5 of them are adult lionesses. And they're a big pride to now try and keep in enough food. Looking for prey like buffaloes. I'd quite like to eat buffaloes, which are delicious for lions to eat. It's a blustery afternoon here. That means it's quite windy. And hopefully that will inspire these lions to get up.
Hello and welcome aboard on the Sunset Safari. We're coming to you live from the Greater Kruger National Park in South Africa. We're watching some crocodiles down by the waterhole, and my name is Ralph Kirsten, and on the camera today I've got Sebastian. How's it, Sebastian? And hello again to all of you. Now please, I want you to send us all your questions through your parents on the Nat Geo Kids at wildearth.tv, because we want to know what you want to know. African bush. But talking about the African bush, let's have a look at a predator that likes staying next to the water. And this one, when we get him in focus, there he comes. Look how he's the smiling assassin. But it's a little bit chilly today, and as James was saying as well, a little bit windy too. So these crocodiles have come out of the water just to get a little bit of warmth from the sun. Because remember that crocodiles are reptiles and they can't make their own heat. So they need to lie up in the sun exactly like they are doing now so that they can get their energy. And they are doing it very well, aren't they? Lying up in the sun. They do look very lazy. Well, they're not the only lazy ones around. There's also some hippopotamus here as well. Look out on the other bank. Look how they're all bunched together. Normally they're in the water, but again, today is a little bit chilly. It's a nice winter's day, but I'm sure that water is very cold. So they're all out getting a bit of warmth in the sun. But hippos are mammals, so they don't need the sun as much as the crocodiles do, but I'm pretty sure that that water is very cold, and so that's why they're all catching a bit of a tan today. And you see those birdies all jumping around on top of them? Those are little oxpeckers. And they're helping to get rid of all the ticks and so on that you might find on the hippos. But, well, hippos don't really get ticks, do they? Well, they might get 1 or 2, but what they do get is a lot of scratches on their backs when they walk through the bush at night, because they go out to eat the grass, and I think these oxpeckers are just eating or drinking some of their blood. They're a little bit like vampires. But there's a couple of hippos in the water. They're not moving very fast, are they? Very big are hippos. I wouldn't challenge one to an arm wrestle or a wrestle at all, because I think they'll just squash me, lie on top of me. And you see there's some Egyptian geese walking along, just grazing a little bit. Oh, there's some little chicks as well, little babies. They're getting quite big now. They were tiny a little while ago. They're growing up very fast, much like all of you, hey kiddies? I'm sure you're all growing very fast. Well, you better have your carrots so that you can see in the dark, like those lions that James was showing you. So, like James said, one out here, I'm also with him, and there's somebody else as well, and his name is Tristan.
Indeed it is, Ralph. My name is Tristan, and it is a very, very, very warm welcome to all of you this afternoon. Hopefully you're having the best Saturday and that you're going to have lots of fun with us as you join us on a ride. Now, I'm joined by Senzo this afternoon, who's our cameraman, and he's going to be showing us all the beautiful things that we see. And remember, it is interactive, so we want to hear lots and lots of questions from all of you. Now, what I'm doing is I'm trying to look for the most elusive cat, while James has got the big lions that are sleeping away in the daylight. Well, we're looking for a elusive cat called a leopard, and so there was a seen this morning, and we're trying to find his tracks to see if we can track him down and show you all of the most beautiful animal, in my opinion, in the world. So we're just having a look around. Leopards love these kind of areas. They like areas where it's thick and dense and lots of bushes and trees where they can relax and hide out. Their spotted coat really blends in very well in these kind of places, and so that's why they like to walk here. Now, what I'm doing is, as I'm driving along, I'm looking very carefully for any signs of their feet where he's walked. So as he walks, he'll leave a nice big track, and that will help us to be able to find him. So we're just having a little look on all these sandy sections as we go, in the hope that our leopard walked in this area as well, and we'll be able to then find him using his footprints. Now, we need to keep a very, very good eye out, because like I say, their spots help them to blend in, and it can be very difficult to find them. But before we kind of carry on looking, there's an animal here that this leopard would love to eat. And these leopards, when I was saying that they like to hide in these areas, they also know that they're here for shade during the day, and that's really nice for them to be able to hunt. And so we look in these thickets because they're going to be hunting these guys, which are called impala. Now, impala are our most common antelope that we see here in this part of the world. There are lots and lots and lots and lots of these guys, and they are probably, I would say, half of a leopard's diet. The leopards out here hunt these guys regularly and try and feed off them quite often. But they're a beautiful, beautiful antelope. And I was saying to you that they come here for shade, but they're also here for a different reason too. The trees that they're under at the moment is a special type of tree called a tambuti tree. And a tambuti tree for us, if we had to eat it, could kill us. It's got a milky latex, so this milky fluid that comes out of the leaf, and that can be very dangerous for us. But the impalas, they feed off it because it helps with it. It makes them get rid of all these bits of things that they can't digest, and so they are in much better condition if they actually feed off these tambuti leaves. And so it's very important for them to actually eat them. So that's why they're here, is not only for the shade but for that tree, and the leopard then takes full advantage of that and will hunt them. What you'll find though is that these impalas are not silly animals. They will start moving from here as the afternoon gets on and the sun comes lower. Then you'll find that they'll start moving out and into more open areas so that they don't get caught by the leopard as easily. But a beautiful animal, and you'll see they're all starting to run now. That's not because something's chasing them. That's just because as one runs, then they all run to try and keep up with one another so that they're not left behind, because an animal that's left behind is far more likely to be hunted than an animal that's together with a group, because when they're in a group, more eyes and ears makes it much harder for a predator to get close to these guys. And there they go. Aren't they beautiful animals? I think so. And that's run off. So we're going to carry on. We're going to try and see if our leopard is somewhere in this general area. I think it should be. I'm sure he's just lying in the shade at the moment, having a little rest, much like the lions. And, well, speaking about the lions, let's go back across to James and see what they're up to.
Now we're going to talk very quietly because we've moved the car and we've got much closer to the lions now. And they are just cleaning themselves, the youngsters. In fact, I don't know if that is a youngster. Let me look with my binoculars. Yeah, it's a young one. You can see that by the very pink nose. Lions' noses normally go black as they get older. And that one's got a completely pink nose. There's no black at all. Probably about 2 years old. It looks a little bit older than that. There is a lioness of around about 4 years, I think. That is also got a pink nose. And then right in front of us here, very close by, we've got the oldest lioness. She's got a nasty injury on her. You can't see it at the moment. She's had it for a long time, so I don't think it's affecting her. But on her other back leg, she's got a nasty injury. Now this lion is about 3 meters away from us. That's about 16 feet. So not very far at all. And so there are lots of lions around us, all 11 of them, and it's very special being this close to the most scary predator in Africa. But you can see, if you're not a buffalo or an impala or wheat, then it's not so scary at all. You can see, of course, that lions do very little during the day. Normally, they sleep for up to 18 or 20 hours. So this pride will lie here in the shade after they played all morning, and they'll do nothing much. And then when it gets a little bit cooler, the oldest lioness will probably stand up, have a stretch. She'll go and greet her friends, the other lionesses, and then they'll head off together. And the youngsters will normally hang behind, because they're probably helping a little bit with the hunt at the moment, but not doing a huge amount to help with the hunting. And so they'll stay behind while the lionesses lead them through the thick bush in search of prey. And this pride is quite hungry. You can see the Nkuhuma pride has got skinny tummies. They're not looking fat, and so they will need to eat. That's how you know a lion's hungry. Not like human beings, which lay on a lot of fat. Yes, actually their paws are enormous. A big male lion's paws, probably about the same size as my hand, and a female's probably, I'd say almost the same size as my hand. Let's say minus the top digits of my, or the top joints of my fingers. So they're huge. And they weigh, that lioness that you're looking at there probably weighs in the region of about, let's say 120 kilograms or so. So that's fairly heavy. 120 kilograms is about 250 pounds. So that's a huge animal. And you can imagine how much meat an animal like that has to eat. 250-pound animal needs to eat a great deal. And as you can hear, the wind is blowing, and that probably means that as it gets dark, it will be very good conditions for them to go hunting. There's very little out here that a lion will not eat. One of those things that it might try and eat is what Ralph's going to show you now.
Yes, well, it's not the water, because you can't eat water, can you? You have to drink it. But that is what I'm looking at. Oh, there's a big one, and that's a hippopotamus. But there's a little baby, and this is a brand new baby. I wonder how long it's been alive, because it is tiny. Wow, that little baby must only be a few days old. So we have a new addition to the waterhole here at Chitwa. Look at him. Look how he's just waggling his ears. Looks like a happy little go-lucky youngster. And he's just gone underwater. They can hold their breath for quite a long time, can't they? Even if when they're tiny. But look, it seems like he's trying to climb on Mommy's back. He was drinking it a minute ago from Mommy. She was lying on his side so that he could drink. But up and down they go. There it comes again. Tiny little baby. Hey? Looks like he wants to climb on Mommy's back. but I'm sure she's mom as well. She'll be looking after this little baby for a while. And there's a little bird as well, just a three-banded plover running along the edge of the water, just in front of the hippos. He's also making his home here next to the water. They're always just on the edge. See that? Catching little insects and things. Oh, looks like he's having a bath. It's about that time of the day. Have a good bath. The water will be getting a lot colder later. Oh, that is all finished. Oh, and a little wagtail came over and said, that's my bathing place. Now he's disappearing off too. And look what else we have here. There's a couple of monitor lizards. They aren't crocodiles. They're very different to crocodiles. They also make their homes next to the water. They don't stay in the water as much as the crocodiles do, and they can eat crabs and little frogs and all sorts, whereas the crocodiles, they mainly eat fish. But they've got very big claws on them as well, so they can dig out some of the eggs that maybe the tortoises and terrapins lay in the ground. And that one also, I think, just getting a bit of the sun, like the crocodiles are doing, because they're also reptiles, so they don't make their own heat. And the energy they get needs to be from the sun. But water monitor lizards. A little bit like Komodo dragons, eh? Very special markings on them too. That one looks like he might be going for a little snooze, just like the crocodiles are. So everybody having a snooze here, very late, don't you think? Except for the little birds that were having a bath, and the little baby hippo that's climbing onto Mom's back. And it is very nice down here by the waterhole. There's another little baby. That one's a bit older than the first one we saw. He's grown up a bit. I think that he's lying on Mom's back. Oh, going under the water again. They do look little disappearing acts. There comes Mom. Takes her breath and under she goes. Where are they going to pop up? Robin, hippos, that's a very good question. Where did they get their name? I think it comes from Hippopotamus. It must have something to do with them living in the water and on land. So what is that called when you live on both? Well, I'm not quite sure, but I know that it's something to do with that. A little bit between water and land. It's almost like they're the missing link between fish and land animals, eh? Hippopotamus. It might also be because they're so large. They are very big, but they can move pretty quickly, so I wouldn't let that fool you, how big they are. And look at all the oxpeckers, with some guinea fowl in the background. Ooh! Well, it's all happening here at the waterhole. Some people sleeping, some guinea fowls feeding. Look at that one hippo on the side there. He's not quite comfortable in the sand, making his spot a little bit better. See there, rolling on his side a bit. I think he's maybe getting irritated with the birdies jumping on his back. Maybe it tickles. But they are really relaxing. Oh, something happening with the monitor lizards. What's going on here? Looks like he's doing a bit of a dance. And look how his forked tongue comes out. You see that? And that's how he smells the air. The one down the bottom doesn't seem to like him. Now that one's also smelling the air. See how they walk? Look at their long claws. Wow. And they have a very strong tail as well. That's what they use for defense. If something had to try and catch them, they'll swing like a whip and smack them with the tail. Just climbing over the top of this little island here. Well, he must have got a bit of energy after lying in the sun. They all seem to be enjoying the sun. All right, so it seems like everybody's enjoying the sun, the reptiles, the hippos, and even the lions.
Yes, the lions are enjoying the sun enormously. It's lovely for them to be sleeping in the winter sun. It gets quite cold here at night. And if you don't have a home to go to, well, then you have to make do and just enjoy the sun while it lasts. Now, I wonder, Craig, if you would show us this one here, this youngster, who's just come to lie right next to us. Now, she's probably almost 2 years old. And doesn't she look cuddly? Doesn't it look like it'd be quite nice to go and cuddle up to her? Well, you could never do that. These lions, although they're allowing us to sit very close to them, are completely wild. And although we've given them the name, the Unkuhuma Pride, it's just because we know who they are, and we know each individual relatively well. But it doesn't mean to say that they are tame in any way. If we were to walk this close to them, they would behave in a very different way. They'd get up, they'd probably run away, but they could growl at us. They might come charging towards us to tell us to go away. But in a car, they just don't seem to mind us at all. Now this little one's looking. And I say little, she's not. She's much bigger than just about any dog you could find. About the size of what's known as an Irish wolfhound, which is a big dog. Maybe a little bit smaller. So about the size, let's say, of a St. Bernard. If you know what that is, it's a pretty big dog. And so you can see I'm sitting pretty close to them, but they're not reacting to me at all. It's not because I'm very brave or anything like that. It's just because they don't see me as a threat, or they don't see me as something to eat. And I just wouldn't like to sit around lions that don't see me as something to eat, or that do see me as something to eat. It would be very scary indeed. They're not afraid, these lions, of much, but you can see that they do like to sleep. Now, the Unkuhuma Pride here is lying in fawny coloured grass. Can you see how perfectly coloured they are for this grass? If they wanted to go hunting now, if an impala came wandering through the bush, or a nyala or a kudu, which are two other antelope species we get here, if one of those two things decided to come wandering through here, then this grass would perfectly hide the Unkuhuma Pride from them. So all 9 of them could slink through the long grass without being seen. And that's the whole point of camouflage. That's what these guys have. They are ambush predators, which means they don't chase their prey for very long. They normally surround it without the prey knowing, and then they give it a fright, and others ambush it. That means or waiting behind a tree or behind a bush or in the long grass to jump on them. Oh, now one of the things that is quite similar in Africa to the United States, there's a very similar bird. No, we're not going to go and see this bird just yet. Unfortunately, hopefully it will come back. Ralph had a very special bird, but I think it's flown away. Let's have a look at the tail. There, that beautiful tail on the end of that little lioness's body. You see how it looks like a pom-pom has been sewn to the end of the tail? Well, that tail helps the Unkuhuma Pride when they are on the hunt. So So when they're hunting, they look for the black thing flicking above. No, oof, there's Sarah, or there's Janine, or there's Bertie. Let's keep going this way, and let's keep going that way. It helps them when they're hunting. It's a completely unique thing, that, a lion's tail. Alrighty, Ralphie's managed to find his bird again.
Well, and it's an African fish eagle. Wow, very pretty bird, isn't he? Now, these are called fish eagles. I'm sure you know why. Because they eat fish. So he'll sit here overlooking the water hole, and he'll scan the water for any fish that are not watching and they come close to the surface, and then he'll swoop down and put his talons out and grab it off the top of the water, and then come back to his perch over here and eat it with his very sharp bill. See that? Got a very, very sharp hooked bill. And well, then he'll have himself a fishy meal. So that's what they like doing, do the African fish eagles. And there's lots of fish here as well, so they're in the perfect spot. Look at that. Lots of water, lots of fish, lots of hippos, lots of birds, and all the animals that come to drink next to the water. They need to be a little bit careful of the crocodiles, not so much of the hippos. There, those Egyptian geese now go swimming across towards the hippos. I wonder what they're going to do. They're going to swim around them? I would think so. Oh, they're going right into the middle of them. And the hippo's scared of the bird. Now, Ains, I know that you asked a question, but Megan, can you just say that to me again? I missed the middle part as we're watching these Egyptian geese scare off the hippos. Now, Ains, crocodiles, I know that we always used to know that they are one of the oldest animals on Earth, but guess which one is even older? And that is the tortoises. Tortoises are one of the oldest animals on Earth. Now, reptiles are the oldest group on Earth, but I believe that tortoises are some of the oldest reptiles. Carry their little houses around on their backs, so that big shell that they've got is part of their spine, so it actually grows out of their back. So it's not like a little hermit crab that might go and find his home. As he grows, he can change his home, and he can choose what his home looks like as well, and the different shells that they go and climb into. The tortoises, they grow their shell around themselves, but when they come out of the shell of the egg that they hatch out of, they already have a little shell. So they start like that. And so I don't think we'll see any tortoises today, because in winter they don't really do too much because it's too cold. So they just go and hide under a bush and stay very still, almost like hibernating. But these hippos, they sleep a lot, a little bit like hibernating, but it's like they hibernate during the day, and then they go and eat their grass out in the plains at night. But lots and lots of birds on them as well, and they're all just picking at the little saws that the hippos have. And that's why you'll see the hippos chasing them off sometimes, because it must get a little bit sore and irritating to have all these birds jumping around on your back and picking at all your little saws. Now, Joy, that's a very nice name. That is the same name as my mom. So thanks for your comment, Joy. You say that's a lot of oxpeckers. Absolutely. It's really a lot, and I think they're all enjoying it because all the hippos are out the water. And so not really picking at ticks. Well, being parasitic as opposed to helping the hippos in any way. They're actually just drinking their blood like little vampires. Look at that. That one's got a lot of scratches on it, and so getting more interest from the oxpeckers. But you can see that it's not happy with them. Very irritated. That one's got a lot of scratches indeed. And the other one there just behind it as well, getting lots of attention. Alright, so we're watching all these oxpeckers, lots of little birds here, and I hear that Tristan has also found a little bird.
I have indeed. Our search for our leopard is not proving to go very well at this stage. We can't find any sign of him yet, but we'll keep persevering. I'm hoping that he's not too far away. But in the meantime, we got to see one of our species of birds that we get out here called a Burchell's starling, and you can see this Burchell's starling is busy looking for all kinds of little food items. They often are on the ground. They like to walk around, and you'll find them often close to elephant dung. And the reason why they're close to elephant dung is because there's little things called termites that will feed off the elephant dung, and they then go through the dung and they find the little termites and they eat them. But aren't they beautiful? You see how the color is shining back at us? It's a really very pretty bird. But interestingly enough, the colors that you see there, so those blues and purples, are not actually the real color of the feathers, which sounds very odd. These feathers are actually black in coloration, but because of the way that they are built and the way that the sun hits them, it reflects back at us a very bright metallic color of blues and purples, which is quite strange. So if the sun goes away and it gets dark, then these birds go almost completely black. You can't really see any color on them at all. It's only when the light hits them that we start to see these beautiful shiny colors. Now, they are very common birds here. We do see a lot of the starlings. This one's actually quite friendly. It's coming to say hello. You see it's coming a little closer. Now, to tell this is a Burchell's starling is very easy. We can just look at the fact that it's got a very dark eye. All the other starlings that are very similar color, they have bright yellow eyes, and they have a much shorter tail. This guy's got a very long tail. It's quite a big starling, and so difficult to mistake it for anything other than what it is. So nice, because some of the other starlings can be quite confusing. They've all got very similar features, the other starlings, but these guys are set right apart given their size and their tail and their dark eye. But you see how they just run around? Now, they can fly. They're not birds that are only on the ground. You will see that they fly if they get disturbed. So if something like a predator were to come, you'll find that these birds will just open their wings and fly away. They actually fly very, very well. But food items in the winter are mostly on the ground, and so they need to run around looking for all kinds of food to be able to keep themselves alive. So they're far more active than our cats are this afternoon so far. It's pretty typical, though. Birds obviously use the daylight to be quite active, or most birds. Obviously, there's also owls that are out in the evenings that go after various food items. Well, our starling is running away from us, so we're going to forge forward. We're going to head off towards the closest waterhole from where I am now, and I'm hoping that maybe our leopard went there to go and just have a bit of a drink of water and maybe see if any other animals came down to drink. So while I head there, let's send you back across to Ralph, who's doing lots of birding this afternoon and has got another bird that would hunt these starlings.
Yes, and one of my favorite birds of prey it is. Now, this is an African Harrier hawk, otherwise known as a gymnogene. And these are very special, are they? Because they've got legs that can bend the other way to normal. So that enables them, and also them being quite long, that enables them to get their legs into the nests of other birds, especially birds that nest in holes in trees. So they can stick those legs the other way and get those talons down into the nest and pull out the eggs or the little chicks that are in there. So these are little nest raiders, and I'm sure there he's having a look to see if there's any holes in this tree, to see if there's any little chicks hanging around. So not very nice for the parents of the birding world, but a very special predator. He doesn't look very nice. I think he's very pretty though, and the same little hook on the end of his bill, like all the other raptors, enabling him to rip away at the meat of whatever he's caught. But you can see with the way that his feathers are getting blown up that it is rather windy, especially up there. But he's got a beautiful plumage, and that's what we call the feathers all around the body. And the plumage being nice and grey, he's got a very yellow face with a black bill and a black tail, and then he's got bands on his front. You can see that he's looking out for anything that he could eat, I would say. Very nice. Now, Isabella, you think they've got a very cool name? I do too. Gymnogene. I think that's better than African Harrier hawk, don't you? It's a bit like their nickname. But, yeah, one of my favourite birds. And they're actually quite common. They're found all over South Africa. Wherever there's other nesting birds, which is pretty much everywhere, you can find the gymnogene. And they go and hunt them. You can see a little bit of the bands on the front of the belly when the wind blows his feathers out. Look how he's looking over the back of his head, eh? And over the back of his shoulder, right over. See there? There you can see the little bands. Very pretty. In the wind, getting all fluffed out. Oh, look, he's doing a bit of feather maintenance. Cleaning and just separating all the feathers. It's very important if they're going to fly nicely to look after your feathers. It's almost like a pilot that's looking after his aeroplane. It's to make sure that the wings don't have any obstructions or anything's broken. You need to check the wheels and check that his windscreen is clear, check his propeller. That's what the bird is doing, because when he's flying around, he needs to have done all those checks before he takes off. Otherwise, he'll have a problem when he's high up in the air and he could come crashing down. But he's really working through all those feathers. Look at that, eh? See, so even predators can be very soft when they want to be. Nice to sit with predatory animals, and like we've done earlier, we're just going to keep on looking for all sorts of things, and I'm going to send you that likes flying around into the sky to predators sleeping on the ground.
That's a very nice rhyme that Ralph made there. A predator that's flying around to a predator that's sleeping on the ground. That's very clever, Ralph. I'm not sure you meant to do that, but that's very good. Well, these lions are doing absolutely nothing at all. So we're going to sit here for a little bit longer, and then we're going to drive around and see if we can't see something else, and then we'll come back to the lions a little bit later when it gets cooler. You can see they're not even lifting their heads anymore. Even as the wind blows, they are so tired. Hello, Mrs. Zero. Ooh, we've got some action here. The oldest lioness is moving over. Mrs. Zero, I think the biggest pride I've seen was about 20 lions. 20 to 24 lions. You do get bigger prides than that. I think there was a pride in the far sort of central eastern parts of the Kruger that was almost 40 lions strong at one stage. A pride very seldom lasts at that sort of numbers. They'll normally split up after a while. There we can see her injury now. Look at that. Doesn't that look nasty? It looks so sore, and she's got a piece of leaf stuck in it. Ow. But, you know, she's had that injury for some time, and we thought when she first got, the old lady is going to really struggle to survive. but she didn't. And she's absolutely fine. And you can maybe just hear the dry grass crackling as the lions move a foot here or a foot there. And it's such a nice day, you know. It's probably about 75 degrees, or maybe even almost 80 degrees out here. And that means the lions are comfortable and relaxed here in the soft straw grass. Susie, there is some evidence to suggest that some prides might help older animals. I did read what we call anecdotal study. In other words, it's not a scientific study, but it was an article that showed a lioness with very blunt teeth, very old, being helped to eat by other lionesses. I think they was off her carcass and letting her eat on them because her teeth were so old she couldn't even do that. But it's not something that often happens, certainly not something I've ever seen. And it's quite brutal living in a lion pride, you know. Often if the cubs become sick or they get injured, well, then they'll be left behind. If they can't keep up with the pride, they'll be left behind. And that's one of the reasons that only about 1 in 10 cubs will make it to adulthood. The rest of them will die, often in the first year of their lives. They can't kill for themselves. They take a bit longer to start killing for themselves than, say, something like a leopard, which probably will kill of a lizard or a bird or something like that very young. And so these lions do have to look after themselves as well as look after each other in the pride. We don't really know why they choose to live in a pride, because they are very big, and sometimes lions on their own can eat as much as lionesses in a pride of up to 3 or so. And so it's a little bit of a mystery. We think it's mainly for security. So really not much going on here. So I think what we'll start to do is move off towards a waterhole, and we'll pop back here a little bit later, because these lions are so fast asleep. In fact, I'm getting quite tired just looking at them. Alrighty, let's carry on. They're not listening to me. You can see that ear not even moving. They're on towards a waterhole not far from here, and we'll see if maybe there aren't some elephants going there. Bye, lions. We'll come back later. Let's see what else we can find on the way. In the meantime, Ralph's decided that he's had enough of his waterhole, so let's go back to him and find out where he's going.
Well, I've decided to leave the waterhole. Well, on there, but I'd go. What else we can find? A leopard or some elephants, or maybe even a buffalo. Minutes ago, but it was a log, so it was a buffalo log. Say to everybody with come me out on safari, buffalo log or signal is giving us a bit of
I want to try find Hosanna. Well, it sounds like Ralph has got a few little minor problems there that he's trying to deal with and sort out, and well, hopefully he will get rid of whatever little technical gremlin he has at the moment. We're still on the lookout for our leopard. So far, no luck whatsoever. We've gone everywhere, tried to check, but we haven't found any signs just yet. So what I'm hoping is that if we go maybe up this riverbed one more time, maybe, just maybe, our leopard is sleeping somewhere where we just miss. Easy to sometimes look over a leopard and not spot it. If they're lying in a thicket and they've just got their heads down and they don't move, then sometimes you can drive right past them, or if you're not at the right angle to see them, and it makes it quite difficult. Oh, there's a beautiful bird there. Now, of course, it's gone behind a leaf. Let me try and see if I can get a better view. Senzo, can you see it there? So there is a kingfisher that is sitting over there. You see it there, sitting in the shadow? Now that's called a brown-hooded kingfisher. It's got those bright blue feathers on the edges of its wing and then that brown head, and that's why it's called a brown-hooded kingfisher. Now interestingly, these guys actually don't eat fish. They are insect eaters for the most part. And so they will find all kinds of little insects and eat those. They're just built like a kingfisher, and that's why they've got that name, but they're actually not something that all kinds of fish species. And that's why it can survive in an area like this where there's no water, even though this riverbed does sometimes get water in the summer months. In winter there's nothing, and so they can still survive here because they don't actually have to worry about finding food in water itself. They can find food in all kinds of vegetation like this, but they like these kind of areas because they like to sit low down in the trees where they can camouflage very well. You can see it's not easy to see that kingfisher. If it sits dead still in the shade, it's quite tough to actually pick them up, especially if it faces away from you and its beak is not side profiled like that. It makes it much harder to actually see them. But very nice to see. Lots of nice birds out. It's because we've got nice, beautiful, warm temperatures this afternoon. Mrs. Zero, you say you love their beak. Their beak is very impressive, isn't it? It's got a beautiful long shape to it that's pointed. It might be beautiful as well, but it's lethal. It's really a serious tool that these guys use down and grab all kinds of things and almost stab them with it. So that beak, while it looks very pretty, can be a deathly weapon for these guys, and they use them quite a lot. It's almost like having a sword on your face that they can use to get the food that they need. Very cool though. Not often we get to see them sitting for so long. They're birds that often fly quite quickly. Right, let's keep going. Let's see what else we can try and find along here. There's often lots of little hidden things in these riverbeds. You sometimes get owls hidden inside here. I can't believe how close this one is sitting. Are you going to stay there? Now normally, like I said, that they fly, but this one is really letting us get very, very close. How's that? That's quite cool. Normally they're quite shy birds and they sort of just take off. There it goes. I'm going to fly to the next branch. Okay, good. Now, won't disturb it any further than that, now that it has flown off. It's still sitting fairly close, but we're going to just drive past and leave it to sit and food. It's also not a bad place being inside here. It's always good to look out for things like elephants, because elephants also like these areas during the day. It's nice and shady and there's lots of food down here, especially in winter. You can see there's quite a few trees that still have a few leaves on them. There's soft sand that they can actually dig for water. So even though there is a little bit of water in some of the water points that we've got around here, like where Ralph is, elephants really like fresh water. And so if they come into a place like this, they can come and dig in the sand. And if they dig deep enough, then there'll be water that seeps up out of the sand that they can then drink. And that's nice, fresh, clean water because it gets filtered by the sand itself, and it hasn't had a buffalo lying in it, pooing in it, or a hippo that's been making a wee in the water. And so it's a really much better to drink that than it is to go and drink out of somewhere like Chitwa Dam. The thing is though, is that sometimes it's a bit difficult for the elephants because there's sometimes big herds. So you'll have a thing where, let's say we have 30, 40 elephants, and digging sand and waiting for it to seep just takes too long. So that's why they'll still drink out of those big dams at times. Still looking in the hope that somewhere I'm just going to see a little spotted figure or a flick of a tail somewhere in this area. Now, while I keep going through here and hope that we can pull a rabbit out the hat and find this leopard, let's send you back across to Ralph, who's now left Chitwa, and I wonder where he's going.
Well, I've come across onto the traverse that's called Torchwood. So this is next to Djuma. I'm a little bit far away from where James and Tristan are. They're all the way on the other side. I'm now looking to see anything that can pop its head out of the bushes here. Will it be an elephant, or will it be a lion, or maybe even a leopard like Tristan is looking for? What is it going to be? I can see there's lots of signs of elephants around here, lots of droppings. And they've got very big droppings, don't they? Probably the biggest of the lot. It makes sense because they are the biggest of them all. A giraffe is taller than an elephant, but an elephant is way, way bigger. I would say it's like 5 or 6 hippos put together. That's the size of an elephant. So, when are we going to see an elephant? I see they've broken some trees down, but I don't see one for now. And that's what I do want to show you, is a nice big eating on some of the leaves of the trees, but I'm not seeing any. Let's just keep going. That's what's so wonderful about the wild areas that we drive here. We never know where the animals are going to be. So while I continue on the search over here, looking for anything that might jump out, especially an elephant, I'm going to head you over to James, who's going down to the waterhole.
I was also hoping there'd be some elephants at this waterhole, but the elephants are obviously not very thirsty at the moment. What we do have is some interesting birds, though, and those interesting birds are called Egyptian geese. And they like to eat grass, believe it or not, although they like to swim in the water. They're mainly grass eaters. Now, I don't know if you know what algae is, but it's a green plant that grows in the water. And that's what they're looking for there. Nice green algae. So these waterholes will become more and more popular as the dry season goes on. We're heading towards the driest parts of the dry season now. So the animals are going to find it very difficult for the next few months. And if we look to the left-hand side, we can see that this waterhole is in fact drying up. It's going to be a little bit bright in your eyes, but you can see that this waterhole is drying up, unfortunately. But that's okay. The animals here have adapted. They know how to survive when there isn't enough water, or when there isn't a lot of water, and it's very seldom that there isn't enough water. That is the Egyptian goose. 2 Egyptian gooses. Otherwise, it's very peaceful here where we are. Let's go a little bit forward. I do know that there are some very large lizards here called water monitor lizards that live around here. So let's go a little bit forward and see if we don't find them. They're quite fun to see. Aniva, yes, they would, absolutely. Monitor lizards would eat crocodile eggs if they could get them. But crocodiles are quite good at keeping their nests secret and safe. And often a mother crocodile, although she doesn't help her babies when they're born, she will very often keep around where she's laid her eggs. And so a monitor lizard would have to be quite careful about it. So we're just looking on the side here to see if there isn't perhaps the telltale sign of a lizard. But of course, we are in winter, which means the lizards will hibernate for a little while, but on a warm day like this, you might expect them to come out. It wouldn't be too unusual to find them out in winter on a lovely warm afternoon like we're having here. It really is very pretty out here indeed. And there were 2 other birds, but they seem to have disappeared now. So let's move on. Let's carry on going. I think I saw some impala around the corner here. Let's see. Sure, I saw some impala down here. Let's go down here. And sometimes we find fish in the ponds. It just depends how long the ponds have been around. So if I dig a big hole and it fills up with rainwater, in the first season you probably won't find any fish in it at all. And eventually, however, what the birds do is, obviously birds eat fish from time to time. They will come and they will land in a pond like this, and they will go to the loo. They'll put their droppings in the pond, and often their droppings have got eggs in them, and then the fish will start to grow in that particular pond. And sometimes the birds stand in vegetation or in water plants that have fish eggs attached to them, and then they'll fly from one water hole to the next, and they will put the, not seeds, the eggs in the water, and then there will be fish. So there are no fish in that pond, but the big pond that you were with with Ralph earlier definitely has got some fish in it. Not a huge amount going on over here. There's another little water hole down here. Let's have a quick look there, if we can't spot something. Impalas have disappeared. Oh, there's a starling. I think that Tristan already showed you a starling. Let's see if these guys land. Oh, this is going to be beautiful. Look at this special bird. Very special bird. I'm going to whisper because he's very close to us. That is a Burchell starling. And you will not get a better picture of a Burchell starling than that. He wasn't scared of us at all. That was very special. Wonderful. Good. That was really cool. Let's carry on. Oh my goodness, that's exciting. Ralph's managed to find himself exploring an entirely new area.
I am, and I'm also just scanning the area, especially around these big termite mounds, just to see if there's any new leopards that are sitting on top of them. Also, just getting warm in the sun, just like those hippopotamuses and the monitor lizards and all the other little, well, and those massive crocodiles that were trying to get warm in the sun. The leopards might be doing the same. So we just need to check on all the termite mounds and any of the spots that we might think that a leopard could hang out today, because we might get lucky and just spot one here somewhere soon. That's what I'm hoping for. I really want to find us a leopard. But they can also walk around during the day. Now, Warren, monitor lizards like the waterhole, they can live for about, I think it's between 6 and 8 years or so. I think probably the oldest being about 10 years. And at that stage they can get up to about 2 meters. So they can get quite big. But they don't live terribly long. And so they do obviously not have the longest of lifespans. I think the crocodiles, now I'm not 100% sure on that, but I'm pretty sure they don't live much longer than that. However, crocodiles, they can live over 100 years. And when there is no food and there's no sun, what they'll do is they'll go into a hole in the ground and they'll just lie there and hibernate until it warms up and there's lots of food around again. So that's what they can often do. And so the crocodiles live much longer than a lot of the other animals. The tortoises, they can live for about 60 or 70. So not much further behind the crocodiles. Maybe I'm a little bit out thinking that a monitor lizard can only live for 10 years. Maybe it will live a bit longer than that, because reptiles are very energy efficient. They don't waste energy like us as humans. They are very good at energy. They only use the energy that they need. So that's what makes them live for so long. Just 100 years. 102 this year, but that's quite unusual, isn't it, for humans to live for that long. Sorry, Megs, I don't know what you said there. You'll have to repeat. As I carry on looking. All right. It seems like I haven't been able to find you a leopard. Now, everybody, I hope and I hope you join us again next week for another lovely safari out here in the African wild. I'm going to salute and I'm going to say goodbye for now, but see you next week.